Let's say the character is finished, okay? I could probably add more detail to him. Right now he doesn't really have any like skin pores or skin, you know, line work or anything on there, so I would definitely want to play around with that. Oops, there we go. So I would go into my brush, let's say, and go to my standard brush, which I'm at. I would go to my drag, and then I would pick an alpha that looks like skin, like that. And then if I take my intensity down, I can start to add some detail. Now when you get into this level where you're starting to add detail, and this detail isn't coming off really good. I mean, the picture looks pretty clear. It looks like little hash mark lines, like if we had skin detail, that's what it should look like, but it doesn't. I don't have enough divisions on here. It's kind of like if you're in Photoshop and you try to draw a straight line, but it comes up all pixelated. That's what's happening to this guy, is that he doesn't have enough divisions in order to capture all of that information. And if I look over here, it has 77,000 points on him. So I'm just going to hit Control D. That subdivides it, and I know that I'm going to need to do it at least one more time, maybe 2 times, in order for me to be able to draw this and actually capture that skin detail. Okay? Now, any of these things you do, they're not meant to be a let's just go crazy and just go woo like that. None of those are like that. They're meant to be like little subtle things that you do to it. So something like that small, like that small, like that small. And I'm just adding these kind of like up on top of each other. And that'll help get the idea of what those are supposed to be. And if I go too much, I can always hold down Shift and use my smooth and just kind of smooth out some of those areas. That way I'm still capturing some of that detail inside here. I'm just not going crazy with it. Okay, so he still has some sort of detail on there. We could also try using the dots, but again, it's going to go like that. Now that's like way too bad. Maybe a little bit lower. It doesn't look so bad there, but we're starting to get some lines. Yeah, so I definitely want to use that the drag rectangle in order to add that stuff to it. Okay, so I would do that all over the entire character, wherever I want that detail. If it helps, look at reference. Look at what a picture of a person looks like. They don't have the same texture all over their entire face. Usually they have wrinkly areas in some areas and lines, less lines in other areas. Okay, so like maybe on the cheeks here or the side of the head you might have some lines, but like maybe over the eyelids you really wouldn't have those kinds of lines. Definitely like on the lips, there's some lines too. That's what this other one is for. This one that's just vertical lines, there it is. So I can go into the lip area. Maybe make this a little bit more intense. And you can see how I can draw these little lines on there to make it look like he has actually some texture to the lips. There you go. And I could also hold Alt, remember, and I could push the lines in instead of having them come out. And I could smooth it out, make sure it blends in nice. And that'll just add to the realism of the character. That's all that's doing. Alright. So that's sculpting. So the sculpting process is the same. Regardless of what you're doing, it's just sculpting. Okay? You can watch 50 videos on YouTube and just watch them sculpt and see how they sculpt. And that'll help you out. Alright, so now the next step is how do we color this? Okay, so right now we have a color. And this color is coming from this here. So this is called a matte cap material. It's like the default ZBrush material. It's kind of like the gray inside Maya is the default material there. So if I go over to this box, this brings up all the different materials that are inside of there. So if I go here to matte sculpey, you'll see how the entire skin turns to this matte sculpey look, which actually resembles pretty convincingly-ish human skin, right? So it kind of looks like it has that same tone and same kind of like glowy areas. So like under here or around the cheeks, it's kind of glowing a little bit like human skin does. It may be a little bit too bright, so I can come into this and play with the colors until I get something that I'm happy with. So something like that, let's say. Okay, Now this is not the actual color. What this is doing is it's adding this color on top of the original color that's inside there. Now we're not going to play with this too much, but I just want you to see where it is. These little double arrows, this is where the material actually is getting created. These are like all the settings for it. So one of them is a wax modifier, which is going to help control some of the glowiness of it. And then there's these other modifiers inside here. And so you can see way in the bottom, it has this texture map of this beigey color. And that's where it's actually getting the color from. The color we choose out here is just being added on top of that. Okay? So if I click on that, just so you can see it, and I choose rainbow, woo, there we go. So now he looks like a rainbow. And then I have to go back and undo that. Oops. Or I'll just go back here, just pick a different color. There we go. Okay, and then I can just hide that. And there's a lot of stuff inside here that you could play with too, like cavity detection. So this is, those little lines aren't really coming off very good in here. So if I pull my cavity detection up, you'll see that those lines are now a bit more visible because I'm detecting the cavities. I'm detecting all the small detail. Okay, so maybe like that is a bit good. All right, so I'm going to close that. I'm going to pick a different color here. There we go. That should be good there. All right, so now I want to actually color this. So we've already seen that if I change this color, it's going to change the entire color of that character. So what I want to do is I want to say I want this character to be baked in. That color information, that shader information, I want you to lock it into the character. Okay? And if we look over here, we'll see that he is also still gray. He's not this color. If I go to my subtool, he's right here. He's still gray. He's not that color. Okay? So I'm going to go up to color and say fill object. And what this does is it fills this object right here. Now you'll see it still didn't do anything here. He's still gray right there. Well, up at the top we have these other buttons we haven't even discussed yet. This is material, RGB, RGB, and material. So this is the material, this is the RGB. I need to click on the mRGB and then do my fill. And then you'll see that this guy now has that color applied to him. Okay? So just like we were doing with the Z adding, as we were sculpting or pushing in and out, these ones is where we're going to add the texture. These ones is where we're going to add the texture. That makes sense. So I'm going to go and turn my Z add off. I'm going to go to my RGB. And if I go here now to color, you can see that the color of the skin is no longer changing. The color of the eyes is, but the color of the skin is not. Okay? The eyes are on their own little layer right now. So just so I had something here, let's go to the eye. And I'll choose silver foil. And I'll choose a white color. There you go. That looks pretty creepy, yeah. Alright, so we're going to go with that. That looks creepy. So I'm going to go to fill object on this. Oop, make sure I click mRGB and fill object. Go to the other eye, click on color, fill object. There we go. So now both the eyes are filled. He is filled here. So now all I have to do is just go to my color, and then I can start painting on the guy. So I'm done with the mRGB, so I just click this, and I can just paint. Okay? So now I'm literally just like painting right on top of that 3D surface. Now it's full-blown 100% opacity. So whatever color I chose down here is 100% painting on top of the color that was already there. So if I go to this RGB intensity, I can knock that down some. And if I use my tablet, there it is, I can start to really customize what he's looking like. So maybe in the cheeks, I want these to be a little bit redder. So I can make these a little bit redder. Let's say under the eyes, I want these to be a bit darker. I'm going to shrink my brush down. And I can paint some darker areas under the eye. Okay. Maybe I want the lips to be a different color, so I'll go find a good color for the lips. Let's go with a weird color. So now I'm going through and just painting the color for those lips. Now, all of the other things apply. So like this draw focus, if I wanted a crisper line, I can pull it that way. If I want a softer line, I can pull it that way. So as I get closer to the edges of the lips, I want to have that harsher line. There we go. Okay. Oops. Now, if I go too far, I can hold down Shift, and I can blend it in. So this is smoothing it out. Now, when I toggle the Shift, notice that the Z add pops back on. Okay, so I have to turn that off, make sure it's just RGB, and then I can help blend this in some more. Okay, I can also eyedrop, so if I grab this color and I drag it onto his skin here, it'll eyedrop and I can grab that exact color that was there. And then I could basically bring it back to where it was at or pretty close to it. Okay, so if I needed to just kind of soften these edges a little bit, I can just go in with that white color and just help soften those edges. It's weird. Let's just erase those lips. There we go. I'll make them kind of goth. I'll put black. Oh, now we're losing it. We're losing it. Now, all of the painting that we're doing is actually based on the pixels or the vertices. So just like in Maya, or just like in Maya, anytime we want to move a certain point, we have to have a division to do that. So that's what this is doing, is that it's painting right on the vertices. So if I start painting something and I'm seeing that it's not coming off very good, I'm going to change that back to freehand. We may have to add divisions to it in order to do that. I have right now 4.9 or 5 million divisions on here, so I have plenty of room to add paint to it. And I can get pretty detailed in these areas. All right, let's call that good. There we go. But let's say I came into a lower resolution of my character. Okay, let's say I went all the way down here. And then I decided I wanted to paint something on here. And so I just started to paint. You'll see there's nothing happening. Even if I take this intensity up, we get that one dot right there. But as I start painting, nothing else is happening. There's no points right there for me to paint on. So as I'm painting, it's actually like painting the vertices. So as I go up in division, you see I messed it up because of how it painted it. Now I can paint more. Go up more divisions, now I can paint more. Okay, so I'm just going to set this back to the sculpting material that it was at. There we go. And I'll just set this back to white. Oops. There we go. And that just erased basically the stuff that was there. All right. So that's part of the process, is just doing that. That's base color. Okay, that's your most simple way just to kind of pick a color and then start painting the color onto the character. Now we also have these textures down here, and we also have alphas. So all of these work in conjunction with the brushes. So if I decided I wanted to maybe add some freckles, I don't know why an alien would have freckles, but he might. I can go into here, let's say the orange. There we go. And I'll use the drag rectangle, and I'll turn my symmetry off, just because it would kind of look weird if you had symmetrical freckles. Maybe I'll shrink that down a little bit. There we go. So now he has these little freckles that we can add to his skin also. And then we can also turn that off. And then I can go to texture. And then these ones are essentially the same thing, except now we're getting color information. So let's say he has jelly beans on his nose. I could paint jelly beans on his nose. There we go. Or I could turn the drag rectangle off and then actually paint those pictures of jelly beans. Now, I don't really have a good use for using the textures in that way. Most of the time you wouldn't want to use those like that. Maybe you would use the drag rectangle. You want to do something like that and blend it in or whatever. There's other ways that we could use these textures here a little bit more effectively. Okay, So one of the ways is by using this textures tab. If I go to the textures tab, I can load my own texture. So I go to here, I go to import, I find my texture. It's under my Monday, Wednesday drone. And remember the drone labels, I'm just going to bring this in just so we can use that as our image. Okay, so now there's my label sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn, I'm going to send this to Spotlight. Okay, and what Spotlight is a tool that allows me to take this texture and apply it right to the character. Okay, so if I want to put Sarcona and project this texture right on top of him, I can do that with this tool. So all the items are right here. So if you look around, as you move your mouse around this stuff, you can see where all of these textures are. So one of these is the move. I'm sorry, scale. There it is. So I can scale this down. I can rotate it. I can drag this over wherever I need it. Scale it down some more. And then if I want to paint, all I have to do is hit Z, and it hides that little manipulator. Then I can go to my regular drawing brush and do that. Okay, now you can't really see what's happening, but if I go back to my texture and I turn Spotlight off, what? Look at that. Okay, not really practical in this case, but let's say we had a picture of like an iris and a pupil. We could zoom in on the eye and we could paint the iris or pupil right on the eyeball. Okay, so in this case, there's no UV layout. We modeled it in Maya, we brought it into here, we sculpted it how we want to sculpt it, we're painting it how we want to paint it, and because we're finishing inside here, we don't have to do any UVs on this. Okay, if we were taking it out, we would, but we're not. All right, and then I can hold down Shift and I could blur this in if I needed to. There we go. Okay, so that's actually like painting it right on top of that. Pretty awesome. So if you look at any of this stuff that people do for movies, they have references. They have like folders that just have pictures of skin in it. And what they'll do is they'll get a picture of skin, they'll bring it into Spotlight, and then they're just painting the skin right through Spotlight onto the face. And that's what's going to make your skin look more realistic. Let's say you had, we've gone to this website before. Let's say you're doing a character or an animal, like an elephant or something. Let's just search for elephant. You can model the elephant pretty good, and then all you'd have to do is use one of these kinds of textures to help paint what the elephant's skin actually would look like. And so you can use that pretty simplistically, just kind of like load the texture, paint where you want that skin to be, and you could rotate around the character and get it to look the way you want. Just so you can see, let me just grab, I don't think this one actually has any skin ones, like human skin. I may have added some. No. So I'm going to get a big texture just so I know that there's lots of detail in there. So let's say Leo. Perfect. My guy was really missing a goatee. So I'm just going to drop this onto the desktop just because I don't care where it goes right now. I'm going to go to my texture. I'm going to import. I'm going to click on Leo and I'm going to add him to Spotlight. So now if I just kind of move, let me hit this off for a second. So I'm going to move my guy in line here. There we go. Let's go grab Leo again. Spotlight's on. And then one of these is opacity. There we go. It'd be amazing if he lined up perfectly. All right, so let's say it's there. Okay, so I'm gonna hit Z, and then I'm just gonna paint. Obviously the eyes are not matching up. And then we'll just turn spotlight off just so we can see how we're looking. Woo! So you can see how pretty quickly we were able to take our character and do that. Now, you wouldn't do just like plaster it on there. You would do just the mouth, you would do the nose, you do the nostrils, the eyes. Then you would come back and paint in all the other areas like the skin. It looks like he has like eyeliner or something on. Let's just fix that. Just go here. And I'm just going to pull this up like this, and then I just paint. Oops. I want to paint his other eye in. There we go. Something like that. I should probably take this intensity down. There we go. There, so now I've gotten rid of the eyes, but again, you can see how quickly we're able to just kind of add a texture on top of the texture that was already there. Okay, so experiment with that too. Kind of play around with it and see. Maybe you'll find something cool that you want to add to yours. The weirdest character. So yeah, so that's what we're going to be focusing on next. So you've shaped it out in Maya, sculpted it in ZBrush. Your last step before rendering is to do this, to add some texture to it. It can just be color. But you may want to play around with some of the other stuff. If I want to paint the eyes, I have to go to the eye layers themselves, and then I could go ahead and paint the eyes. Oops. Turn that off. And pick a color that I can see. That's on, that's on. I picked a horrible color. That's what's happening there. Let me pick something else. I'll just pick this white. Oh my God. Know what happened there. And then we'll fill our object. Click that one. Oops. Fill that object. There we go. Alright, so now we can go ahead and paint the eyes. Maybe we can paint the eyes. Oh, there we go. I was selecting the wrong eye. There we go. Okay. Alright, so that's where the next step is going to take you. So when you're ready for it, start painting your texture. Okay? Any questions? Alright.